thought we had a chance to get 3, as they did. Both keepers were on top of the day, but in between the keepers, I thought it was a good performance. And certainly from our point of view, finding the balance I've spoken about, many, many times, is the idea of being strong defensively in the shape of the team and the organisation of the team, but still having the freedom to go and play and open up the opposition when you can. And I thought there was a nice balance to that, and glue that together with a high physical demand. And I think we're often in the right place, and I think we're on the right place, or on the right lines, I should say, against Everton. And a couple of the other games recently, people forget, as I mentioned last week, that we had a big blip against Man City, but they're a top side. They can hurt anyone on their day. So that wasn't me.
In terms of team news, have you got any players coming back this weekend?
Don't think anyone jumps off the page. Bardo should be around it. Dale Stephens possibly needs a bit more football. Excuse me. The ones who Johan's still touch and go, we'll have to make a decision on him at this stage, and I think probably he'll need more recovery time to get him properly up and running, as it were. Corky's making good progress, so he's on the grass with us. Obviously, he definitely needs some games, but he's on the grass with us now, which is good to see him back out there. And so far, no reaction, so that's good. It's just Corky on his way back, and Johan, who needs that real true fitness and kind of run of just being injury-free, to be honest. And like I said, Bardo and Dale, they'll be back at least in the training group as they have been the last number of days.
In respect of Corky himself, what chance that we see him involved in any of the games over Christmas, when the squad's naturally going to be stretched anyway?
No, first things first is to make sure that he's fit and well, as in properly fit and well. So he's been out with a tricky injury that needed some real care and attention, which he's done brilliant with, of course, on the medical team. And now it's about having a kind of commonsensical approach to it. He's going to need some football. I've always been a believer that players, they deserve the right to be fully fit when they play. We've tried to get that here. It's very rare that I've ever asked anything of a player when they're not quite fit or they're not quite physically right. On occasion, but not very often. So we certainly want him to be 100% or as close to that as can be before he gets on the pitch with the real stuff.
I know last Saturday as well, you were particularly pleased with the way you started the game as a team. You got the early goal, you're on the front foot. Away at Arsenal, can you be quite so positive from the start, or does the natural law of the game, so to speak, away from home at one of the top 6 sides generally dictate that you've perhaps got to be a little bit more careful?
Well, I think over the years we haven't had a result against them, but we've actually stepped on in a number of games, and a few decisions have gone against us down the years, and we've actually delivered some really good performances. We're going to have to do that again. A bit of noise around them at the minute, up and down, and the form, etc. But the investment they've made in the players there, money doesn't win you games, but it does. It probably ensures that you've got some quality, and they certainly have quality. So I think, we've got to be diligent to what we do, that's for sure. Go down there on the front foot, take the game on, as we mainly do. We've had a few slip-ups, but we mainly try and take the game on to win it, and that's certainly going to be the mindset going down there. What
do you make of Arsenal this season? Because you touched upon it there. There's a bit of noise around them. I said they're usually a top 6 side. They're currently 15th. I heard last week one broadcaster suggest that they'd sacrificed a bit of creativity for structure this season. Is it justified criticism or a little bit unfair?
Criticism, whether it's justified or not, it's there. It's there for everyone to deal with in the Premier League, managers, coaches, players. So I think that's just part of what it is. Regarding the team, I think, it takes time to find the right balances for a manager and the coaches and the players. And every manager is looking ideally to keep clean sheets and score goals, quite obviously, in its simplest form. The idea of finding the right way of doing that is not always that easy. Whether you've got the very good players or not very good players, finding that balance is still an important factor. And if you add in a little bit of noise, as you said, big expectation of Arsenal, of course, generally speaking, year on year, mainly because of the last 20 or so years under Arsene Wenger, which mostly has been unbelievable. So I think that's a tricky one itself, coming out of the Wenger period and then putting your own mark on it. We don't take anyone for granted. Back to the point, they're still a top side. They've got players who have been bought in for a fortune, are very good. They're very they can turn games at any given moment. we've got to safeguard against that. And the only way of doing that is for us to play well. I mean, you can't expect to get anything from these games if you don't play well. In spite of whether the opposition have an up and down time or not, you have to play well, and that's going to be our focus.
Yeah, and at least looking on paper, they've got players like Aubameyang, like Lacazette, Eddie Nketiah has come off the bench and is potent with his pace as well. They're not a team to be taken lightly, are they?
No, I don't think anyone has. I don't think it's a case of that. You know, like I say, a few opinions on them at the moment, but you've still got to go down there and play well. You've got to be aware of the qualities that they have, but I think people are, generally speaking. You know, we can't concern ourselves with too much about the opposition. You know, we've got our own challenges. And, you know, often find ourselves answering questions about the opposition. But trust me, we'll be focusing on ourselves, the players. They've trained very, very well lately. We've got a group of players who are getting fully fit again. And that sharpness in the players that have kind of needed the football is beginning to come back. And I think generally we're looking like a stronger unit. Now, we've got to turn that kind of stronger looking unit and stronger performances into wins. It's you know, it's not rocket science, that side of things, because I can talk about stronger performances and all the rest of it. But sooner or later, we've got to put wins together. We're showing the right signs, but we've got to factually go and take care of ourselves and take care of business. So that's what the thought before the game will certainly be in planning and when the whistle blows.
Final one from me, Sean. You know how difficult it can be to turn around from playing Europa League Thursday to playing Premier League Sunday. Can you use that to your advantage, given that's the situation Arsenal find themselves in right now?
Well, they made a lot of changes. There was a lot of young players played, got a good result. So I would imagine that some of them changes will be, or some of the changes will be reversed, and some of the more experienced players will come back in. So I think they're slightly more rounded in that world than we were when we went into Europa. You know, the first season in 50 years. So it's a bit of a different learning curve.
Brilliant. Best of luck this weekend, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Rebecca, hi, Rebecca. Premier League Productions.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good point against Everton last weekend. Do you feel with a result like that it gives the team more of a boost going into the game against Arsenal?
I think we've been sort of looking for a boost. I think the general feel in the camp's been very good. I think the application of training ground performances into first team performances has got stronger. And so I don't think it's necessarily a boost. I think what it does, it reinforces the good work done. But of course, the facts are the facts. It was only a point. The thing behind the point was the way we went about it. So I think the key is to stick with what we're doing, know what we're doing, and keep working to enhance it, of course. But because of the historical data we've got and the markers we've got, when we supply certain performances at a consistent level, we know that it brings results. So we've got to remind the players of that and keep adding to it in order to get results.
And obviously taking on Arsenal, who are currently 15th in the table, they're only actually 7 points above you. Do you think this is a good time to play them in the season?
Well, I think it's one of them. They've still got very good players, you know, individually. They're still a collective unit. Possibly they're finding their feet still. You know, we've seen the up and down nature of some of their results. But, I mean, you can't take these teams lightly. We never do. We never take anyone lightly in the Premier League. But, you know, you certainly can't take these teams lightly. They can click at any time. They haven't always found that so far. We hope they don't, of course, when we play them. We hope we do. We hope we want to click into what we do. We know we can be effective, as mentioned, and I think a lot of our focus is on us. That's for sure. We always make the players aware of the opposition and some of their strengths and weaknesses. But a lot of the focus remains on us at the minute. We've been working a lot with the players on what we're doing, both in and out of possession, and how we're going about our business. So that'll be the main focus for us.
And Burnley have been beaten on all 6 of their Premier League visits to the Emirates. Will you be looking to change history this weekend? Well,
thanks for the positive. It's always nice when people remind me of these things, as if I didn't know them. But no, we'll certainly... Look, we know the stats and facts. We know our history. We know what we want to do in the future. But the last one doesn't guarantee the next one, good or bad. So there's certainly no relying or looking at them games as being something that's taken Sunday. We think we've delivered some good performances actually against Arsenal, as I mentioned, and we haven't always got what we deserved. But that's sometimes the nature of it. If we don't deliver, but we get a nice win, then sometimes you take that. But you want to work on the basis that the performances get you points and wins, and that's what we're trying to do. We think performances have got stronger. We want to build on that. We want to take a good performance to Arsenal and see where it takes us.
Sean, that's everything from me. Good luck for the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Mark, Press Association.
Hi, Sean. We touched on it there that in the past you've had not much luck against Arsenal. Mikel Arteta's been criticised a little bit lately for trying to change the way they play and the number of crosses they put into the box and things like that. Do you think that change of play, that tweak of tactics actually suits you in terms of trying to get a result against an Arsenal side?
Well, I don't know the inner house thoughts. A lot made from outside of Arsenal, on their opinion. But in-house, him and his staff and players will have their own thoughts on how they're trying to play. Whether they've found the right groove or not, they'll have their opinion of that. Crosses, a lot of teams cross the ball, and a lot of teams look to get the ball into the right areas a number of times in different ways. And so I certainly don't think crosses won't go out the game, that's for sure. So if they're trying to use a crossing style game more than they were previously, that might be by design. It might be just by the setup of any given game. Like I say, the players know, by the way, the coverage of these sides is massive, across the Premier League, but certainly the big sort of powerhouses, which Arsenal are certainly one of them. Whether they are currently is not the case, but they are generally. I'd put them, certainly I think everyone on this call would put them in the top 6 thinking of the Premier League. So, you've got to remember that they've still got some very high quality players. They've still got players of quality individually as well as a collective. If they're changing their style of play, at some point the manager will decide what he thinks right, the coaches will, and the players will as well. I'm sure they'll have their input too. We've got to guard against everything they offer because the Premier League, it's like I say, the last one doesn't guarantee the next one, good or bad, for us or them. So we've got to focus on using what we're learning this season about our group, using the collective mentality that we've had to use many, many times before, and going down to there in good shape mentally, physically and tactically to take on the game.
Something you mentioned earlier on was, conversely there, your Europa League form's actually been quite good. But I don't think anyone would envisage we're going to see those play. We're still going to see the Aubameyangs and Lacazettes, I think, on Sunday, aren't we? That'd be what you're still prepping for.
Well, you don't know. I mean, the manager there to pick the team, that's his job, amongst many other jobs, but that's certainly one of them and one of the main ones. So it'll be down to him to decide what he wants to play. They've got some high quality youngsters, Arsenal always do have, but they've also got some very high quality experienced players who, they've invested heavily in. So I think he'll find the mixture that he thinks he can win. And equally, I'll be looking for the mixture that I can find to win.
And just finally, it kind of proves the mad world that you work in at the moment, that you think it's 4 months since he won the FA Cup and there's question marks already over whether he should be in charge. That just sums up the job, really, I think, doesn't it?
Welcome to the jungle. It's there for all of us. Seriously, it's there for all of us. People make their work very, very quickly in football nowadays. So I think that's just a reality. And I certainly don't think the manager there will be worried about that. I think he's been in the game long enough. We all know how it works. So, you take some good news, take some bad news, you get on with it. Simple as that. The next game comes around, no matter what.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Alex, Match Alive.
Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. We could see 2 sort of young, left-sided, up-and-coming English players in Dwight and Bukayo Saka going head-to-head this weekend. The latter, the Arsenal man's gone sort of through the under-21s and into the England senior setup. Dwight's been mainly a fixture in the under-21s. Do you think he's been a little bit unlucky there, and Saka seems to have maybe jumped the queue a little bit, and perhaps there might be an element of he's playing week in, week out for Arsenal, therefore he perhaps gets more plaudits than Dwight in the wider football world?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just purely a case that, the managers of whether it's the under-21s or the full national side in Gareth, they're looking for certain things at any given time for any group, what the games they've got possibly as well, prepping the team how they see fit. Dwight's a very good player. He continues to consistently perform. He continues to learn as well and develop. So, I'm more interested in that side of things. I see him at close quarters, obviously, so I'm bound to be a bigger fan. But I think Saka's a very good player, and he's showing that. I think there are some really good young players coming through, I think, and I think there's 2 of them. And I think that's healthy for the national system, when players of that quality are coming through. So, the idea of them being on a pitch together, I don't think they'll literally be head-to-head, you never know, depending on the positional side of things. But no, I get your point. No, I think they're 2 very talented players who are earning the right to play in the Premier League and doing it well.
How do you sort of assess Dwight so far this season? Because he's often looked at from outside as the creative driver, if you like, and perhaps people do forget that he's just turned 21, hasn't he? Still, as you said, they're still learning and developing.
Yeah, I think that's great credit to him, though. The people inside of this place and outside of this place know him as a creative player and someone who can create, someone who can perform. I think he does the hard work side of the game very well. The defensive side, I think he understands it and what it means to the side that he's playing in to do that. I think he's formed into a very rounded player, and I like that side of it. I think the modern game, sometimes players are looked at as one thing and one thing only, and in some teams that works. They want a specialist player for a specialist kind of way of working in a team. I certainly am a fan of having players who can do a bit of everything. You want them to defend for the team, you want them to work, that's for sure, but you want them to have talent, and I think he's got a nice mixture of all of it.
And we're coming up, obviously, to the end of the calendar year, end of 2020. It's been a difficult one for you in terms of managing squad sizes and the amount of injuries you've had. How proud have you been of the team and the collective, and perhaps one or two individuals as well who have really shone and been consistent across the year in difficult circumstances?
To be honest, there's never been a time here when I haven't been proud of the players here and the staff that I work with and the club. Look, pride's a thing you talk about, and often it only gets used when you're winning. It's important to remember the work these lads do when they're not winning. We've got a tough spell now. It doesn't mean there's a lack of pride or belief in what they do, the energy, the performance levels, the training levels. That's been there. I remember speaking in the Europa year when we got off to a really tough start. And speaking of the pride in the team, I haven't forgotten what these lads have achieved in the past. I don't reflect on it very often, to be fair, but I haven't forgotten it. I know it's there, and what they've done recently and what they'll continue to do. It's a very short time ago. We had 9 games after the lockdown last year. Hardly any players falling left, right, and centre and delivered unbelievable performances and results. So, I certainly don't lose pride in them. I sometimes question the performance or the tactical performance and all the details that go with it, but I never question the pride I've got in them.
And just one quickly on the transfer window coming up next month. We know it's a difficult window for many reasons at Burnley, and obviously in January as well. You may or may not be able to plug a couple of squad gaps, but how important also is it to perhaps look at the likes of Josh Benson and those players who you've got coming through that are out of contract in the summer as well, and build that side of the club forward to perhaps enable you to not need to plug as many gaps in the transfer market going forward?
Well, certainly the transfer windows here have been joyous, all of them. Familiar ground for me and really exciting. To get asked the same questions constantly for over a month has been great fun. And to work with the idea and the framework financially of what we've got is even more fun. So that's a given here. Behind that, the emergence of some of the young players, or the taste they're getting for football here, which is a credit to them, first of all, to push themselves to the level where we take them seriously. And a number of have done that, obviously with Jimmy Dunn and Ben Overton. I mean, Dwight's the leader in that sort of side of things, but Gleno's had, moments as well. These are young players who have got a chance, and so far have laid down a marker, and that's an important thing. So when they do that, quite obviously you're looking for evidence, and when you get evidence that they can handle what the expectation of the Premier League is, or you get some evidence, then it builds belief. It builds belief in them, it builds belief in the players around them, the staff, and myself.
Has that changed your perception of them a little bit? Has they perhaps exceeded your expectations in particularly someone like Josh, who's come in and looked relatively at home in the Premier League? I realise it's a small sample size of games.
No. The way it works is you've just got to get a feeling for when they're ready. Some of it is evidence-based. Some of it is on a gut feel of knowing players all my life and my staff knowing players all their life, processing it down as a staff to decide when we think they are ready. And then the moment of truth comes when they get on that football pitch and they show you. Sometimes they're ready, sometimes they maybe need a little bit more time, sometimes they need a loan spell, etc., etc. It's a fluid business, player development, and sometimes it's more obvious than not. Sometimes people surprise you and they come out of the blue.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks. That concludes the broadcast section, everybody.